Hey guys, so today I thought we would do something a little bit different. I thought we would take a sort of deep dive look at my latest single, Julius Caesar. One, because I'm really proud of the song and I just kind of want to share more of it with you guys, but I also think there's a pretty good case to be made for it having some educational elements, especially in the field of sort of classical bass theory. If you haven't heard the song, definitely go listen to it. It's here on this channel. But I ended up combining some elements of the classical training I've had my whole life with some more modern contemporary production, and it came out really well. And I really feel like there's a lot to dive into that could really be helpful for anybody who's interested in this sort of thing. So the first thing I want to mention is that this song, Julius Caesar, is based on a piece by Jean-Philippe Rameau entitled La Livre, from his set of pieces for harpsichord trio entitled Pieces de Clavecin in Concert. These pieces, if you're not familiar with the Baroque era, were known as trio sonata pieces, although these were a bit different because they emphasized the virtuosity of the keyboard player, accompanied by violin and viola da gamba, providing the bass. So what I ended up doing is taking the melody from La Livre, which sounds like this, and what I ended up doing was taking the melody and bass line, which I had sheet music for, and then filling in the inner voices using the principles of counterpoint that I learned from this book. Now this book is really interesting. It's by Johann Fuchs. It's been in print in the Western world, at least. I think the whole world now at this point. But it's been in print continuously since 1720. Everyone from Mozart, Beethoven, Haydn, and into present day have studied this book to get a better understanding of what counterpoint is. So what I want to do is I want to dive a bit into the sheet music of Julius Caesar here and show you guys kind of what I'm talking about when I say things like filling in the voices. And I'm hoping that when you guys see what I did, it'll definitely provide like some inspiration, maybe a different way to write pop songs, because it really blew open my world when I combined the classical stuff I learned as a kid with all the modern production stuff I've been doing recently. So let's dive into it. Here we have the sheet music for my song Julius Caesar. Let's briefly fly over to Logic and listen to the string quartet part isolated so I can explain some of the contrapuntal principles I talked about earlier. So as you can see, by taking Rameau's melody and choosing to apply counterpoint to a four-part harmony structure, we're able to give the piece of La Livre an almost fusion-type feel between Rameau and Bach by using the principles of counterpoint. Now, I'd like to dive a little bit deeper into some of the techniques I use to achieve this. If we take a look at the first bar of Violin 1, we see the beginning of Rameau's melody. We have two quarter notes and then a series of 4 eighth notes. Going down to the cello, which represents the bass part, we see a series of 4 eighth notes, followed by a quarter note, and then an eighth note and 2 16th notes. Now, one of the principles of counterpoint is often to pick a countervailing note value to the cantus firmus you are given to allow it to function in multiple harmonic ways across a bar. So, let me break it down more simply. In the Violin 2 part in bar 1, we simply have a whole note of D above middle C playing for the entire bar. By doing this, it interacts with both the bass and Violin 1 parts quite effectively. In the bass, you see the first note is a B natural. In the Violin 1 part, we have F sharp. When we compose the note D in the Violin 2 part, it ends up forming the third of a B minor chord. If we move on, in beat 2 of the Violin 1 voice, we see the melody jump up to B, and moving down to the bass voice on beat 2, we see it move up to D. Once again, we have the D written in Violin 2 part functioning as the minor third of a B minor chord. Basically, to wrap it all up, if we take a look at the entirety of bar 1 across all 4 parts, we basically see different inversions of a B minor chord being outlined and presented at various beats on the bar. For example, on bar 3, we have an F sharp in the bass, followed by a D and then a B natural in the top voice, with that D note above middle C sustaining across violin 2. This is kind of the amazing thing about counterpoint. Even though the emphasis on bar 1 is clearly on a B minor chord, the shifting nature of the parts allows various inversions and extensions to take prominence depending on which beat of the bar we are on, giving the feel of the song a much more fluid, unstable, and shifting nature than if we were to simply working with a vertical harmonic framework, i.e. assigning chords to downbeats, upbeats, and bar lengths, etc. And if we go throughout the rest of this figure in Julius Caesar, you see similar principles applied throughout each bar. Whenever there are quicker note values, a longer note will be assigned above or below it. So for example, here in the first bar of bar 2, we have quarter notes and a dotted quarter note everywhere except the viola, which takes a half note and therefore takes a slightly different role harmonically from beats 1 to 2. Now this basic framework is how I built the quote-unquote harmonic movement of Julius Caesar. If you begin to understand that how I composed this song was picking the appropriate note and note value for each bar to make sure it harmonizes correctly with Rameau's melody and bass line, you begin to see what I mean when I said I didn't write this song with chords at all, because as you can see from the music, there really is not static, parallel note movement from beat to beat. Each bar has notes that tie over each other, blend with each other, extend various functions of each other, which gives the song the shifting feel that the majority of Baroque music had from the mid-17th century to the early 18th century that I think is so cool and provides so many opportunities for music today. And that's just a brief theoretical overview of how Julius Caesar was composed and what methods went into composing the piece. Now, leave a comment if you'd like me to go into even more detail and get into more theoretical stuff. I'd love to do that, and I can really go over all the nuts and bolts and rules of counterpoint if anyone's interested. But for now, let's fly back. So as you can see, the way I wrote Julius Caesar was very, very different than I think, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I think very, very different than the way most people write pop songs. So the song has a verse-chorus form, that's very much true, but the idea was that it was built stacking melodies on top of one another, not writing chords. See, the thing that I feel like is so revolutionary that we can learn as contemporary musicians from classical theory is that music was not always so vertical the way we think about it today. And when I say vertical, what I mean is chord-based, harmonic movement from one chord to the next within each bar, right? You know, going from C to G to D and etc. For me, the radical thing about studying counterpoint as a kid and then again as an adult was the idea of lines of melodies and building them on top of each other so that they're all harmonious and balanced while still keeping in the back of your head a rough harmonic framework that you might want to follow. Now, even with Julius Caesar, I actually didn't even have a harmonic framework. I ended up taking, as I said, Rameau's melody line, his bass line, using the principles of counterpoint to fill in the inner voices, and whatever subsequent harmonic structure the song took on, I basically just let it take on whatever it was going to take on. I had no planning about chords I wanted to use or how to resolve anything. I simply applied the rules of counterpoint the best I could while using, the discernment of taste. I didn't want anything too busy at the wrong moment. And I ended up coming up with a really, really, in my opinion, incredible song that I'm very proud of. I guess I just wanted to make this video because one, kind of at a stopgap with content. Two, you should definitely go stream Julius Caesar. I would be very appreciative, and I think it's a cool song. And three, the process that I had writing this song in this way, or rather composing this song in this way, was just revolutionary and sort of opened up my ideas on how to write music, and I hope I can do the same for you. So please like and subscribe, leave me a comment. It really helps the algorithm get me out there. And I really appreciate all the support you guys have given so far. And please consider, if you enjoyed this video, subscribing to my Patreon. We have a lot of cool stuff coming there. It's been a bit of a hectic last couple months for me. There's a message on my Patreon about why, but there should be some really cool stuff coming. So I'd really appreciate if you guys linked up with that. And yeah, I will see you in the next video. I hope you learned something. And yeah, see you then.